If you're neurospicy and you happen to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses, this week's discussion is going to be especially interesting for you. Welcome to update number 2.
Have you ever felt like there's something running just beneath the surface, a kind of hidden logic to things?
Oh, definitely. That sense that maybe the world works in ways we don't always, consciously grasp.
Exactly. And it can feel especially strong if your own way of experiencing things feels a bit, well, different. Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah, welcome.
So today we're looking at something pretty fascinating. It's a collection of notes, some excerpts, basically a peek behind the curtain at a story that's still forming.
That's right.
And we think this will be particularly interesting for you, our listener, especially if you happen to be a neurodivergent Jehovah's Witness, maybe encountering this whole thing for the first time.
Yeah, and what's really unique here is how it's forming. It's not like a planned out project from the start.
Mm.
The sources we have, dated around April 28th, describe it as becoming accidentally real.
Accidentally real. Okay, I like that. Intriguing.
It is. We're basically looking at the raw ingredients for a book they're thinking of calling accidentally real. We get to see it kind of bubble up.
Okay, so let's get into that accidentally real idea. These notes, they seem full of insights about inner life, right? How our internal world sort of blends with the external.
Precisely. It's described as this really immersive journey. And parts of it are definitely a bit unusual, a bit weird even,
Uh-huh.
and very somatic.
Yeah.
Really connected to the body, to feelings, to sensations.
Right. So our mission today is to explore this unfolding story in a way that feels, immersive, maybe a bit weird, somatic, but also, importantly, safe for you.
Absolutely. Safety is key.
And this might become an actual book sometime late 2025.
That's the plan mentioned in the sources, yeah. Late 2025.
Okay, cool. So let's unpack it. What does this accidentally real thing actually look like based on these notes?
Well, the core seems to be this story that weaves together dream logic, that surreal feeling,
Yeah.
but just everyday life. And the main character is someone named Kitty. Apparently, she used to be Karen.
Oh, interesting. A name change often signals a big shift.
Exactly. It hints at transformation. And Kitty is described as IDHD INFP.
Okay, so autistic and ADHD plus the INFP personality type.
Right. And her whole journey is about self-discovery, but, and this is crucial, it's grounded in her understanding of Jehovah's truth.
So that neurotype, the ADHD and the personality type, that really shapes how she experiences everything, inside and out. That seems central.
It really does. And what's fascinating is how the story makes her inner world tangible. It's not just vague feelings.
Okay.
It's like populated. There are personified emotions and experiences. For instance, there's mention of a pelican with Tourette's.
A pelican with Tourette's. Wow. Okay, what does that represent?
It seems to stand for those, repetitive, intrusive thoughts, the ones that feel kind of out of your control sometimes.
I can see that vivid image.
Yeah. Or there's a rabid bear representing like intense, maybe suppressed anger.
Okay.
And even get this personified coffee with avoidant attachment issues.
Wait, talking coffee with attachment issues.
Apparently.
Mm.
It seems like a way to explore relationship dynamics, maybe without tackling them head on, using these personified elements.
That's definitely creative. It sounds kind of like the sources mentioned a Muppets going on a road trip energy.
Exactly. That captures it well. Like having tea parties with parts of yourself, it sounds whimsical, but it's also a way to maybe understand those internal conflicts we all have.
Right, giving them a seat at the table, so to speak.
Yeah, and then there's the soul DMV.
The soul DMV, like Department of Motor Vehicles.
Sort of. It's this imagined place, this field of emotional distortion where confusing feelings become like bureaucratic chaos.
Oh my goodness.
Think like grumpy receptionist bots losing your sense of self, or caseworkers sighing while they reject your paperwork for basic empathy.
Wow. That is weirdly relatable, actually. For anyone who's felt lost in confusing systems or just misunderstood, that externalization of inner chaos as bureaucracy, that could really hit home, couldn't it? Especially maybe if you experience social anxiety.
I think so. It takes that internal feeling of frustration and confusion and gives it this concrete, albeit bizarre, form.
Okay, so you have this wild inner landscape. How does the story suggest navigating it?
Well, it introduces these specific rhythms. There are germination days.
Germination days?
Yeah, days set aside for just complete inward pause, stillness, reflection, like a total break from the outside world.
That sounds potentially really helpful, especially if you deal with sensory overload or burnout. Like an internal Sabbath?
Kind of, yeah. A dedicated time for inner regulation. It seems vital, not just nice.
Okay, and then after those?
Then come the shoe days.
Shoe days.
It's about the gentle process of re-entering the world, taking the insights or the wonder you found inside and bringing it back into everyday stuff mindfully.
Okay, so you pause inward, then gently step outward. How does the story bridge that? How does Kitty, or maybe the reader, make sense of what came up during that germination time?
Good question. That seems to be where these things called seed poems come in.
Seed poems.
Yeah. They're described as like keys, short pieces of writing that help unlock or understand these internal states. Writing itself becomes a tool for processing.
Okay, writing is navigation. I like that.
And tied into all this is a really powerful theme, reclaiming imagination and wonder, what the notes call glimmer.
Glimmer.
Yeah. Seeing that not as something suspect or, from a negative source, but as a genuine gift from Jehovah.
That's a really important distinction, especially within our faith context, reclaiming wonder as God-given.
Exactly. Which brings us to the big question, really. Why should you, listening right now, care about this? Especially if you're an ND Jehovah's Witness hearing this for the first time.
Right. Why is this relevant? Well, think about it. Have you ever felt like your experience just doesn't quite fit the standard mold?
I think many can relate to that.
Well, this proposed book, right at the start, apparently has a note specifically for neurodivergent witnesses. It acknowledges that feeling directly.
Wow, okay, so direct validation.
Yes. It offers the sense that, hey, you're not alone in feeling the world intensely or differently.
And connecting that to faith.
Yeah.
The whole idea of navigating inner chaos to find order, that really resonates with seeking a sound mind, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It lines up with that encouragement to cultivate mental and spiritual balance.
Yeah.
The notes mention the author's own journey, her prayers for that kind of clarity,
Yeah.
which feels very relatable. That desire to understand Jehovah's creation, even the parts of ourselves that feel maybe complicated or different.
And that idea of difference.
Yeah.
The story seems to emphasize different, not less.
Yes. That phrase comes up. It's linked to a mentor figure in the story, and it reminds me of Temple Grandin's point about how different kinds of minds are valuable.
Right. Your unique perspective isn't wrong. It's just different.
Yes, exactly. And the story also touches on time differently, this concept of heart time.
Heart time.
Yeah, like less about the clock and more about the depth of experience. How a single morning could feel incredibly full and meaningful, even if not much happened by external standards.
That sounds very resonant with certain neurotypes that focus on depth over linear progression.
It does. And it seems to offer real comfort for intense emotions. Speaking to the one who feels too much.
Acknowledging that intensity rather than dismissing it.
Yes. And framing the healing journey within Jehovah's soil, suggesting growth happens in that safe, faithful space.
Okay, so we talked about immersive, weird, somatic, safe. How does the story show those things?
Well, the immersion comes from those really detailed descriptions of the inner world, right? The personified parts, the soul DMV. You feel like you're right there. The weirdness is definitely there with, talking coffee and pelicans with Tourette's, but it's a creative weirdness, using that dream logic to offer insights.
It's not weird for weird's sake. It serves a purpose.
Exactly. And the somatic part. It's all about feeling the emotions. That phrase, nervous system on your sleeve, is so potent.
Yeah, very physical.
Even small things, like hair twirling being a grounding action in the story, emphasize that body connection.
Okay, and the safety aspect.
Crucially, the notes say the book explicitly states it's not spiritual food. It points people to jw.org for that.
That's a vital disclaimer.
Absolutely. And it consistently frames Jehovah as the source of truth and wonder, carefully avoiding anything like magic, always circling back to the creator.
Okay, that framework is really important.
Definitely.
So this whole accidentally real story is still developing?
Yeah.
But for those interested, keep an eye out for the book, Accidentally Real, potentially in late 2025.
That's the timeline mentioned, yeah. Seems like it'll be a deeper dive into all these themes we've touched on. A journey into our inner worlds, guided by wonder, rooted in faith.
Sounds intriguing.
It really does. And that leads us to maybe a final thought for you to ponder.
Okay.
What if those parts of your inner world that feel maybe chaotic or strange or just different, what if they hold their own kind of accidentally real truth? Something waiting to be understood? Could that unique sense of wonder you sometimes feel actually be a glimpse of the amazing reality Jehovah intended all along?
That's definitely something to think about. A different kind of reality.
Yeah, something to consider. Well, that's all we have time for in this deep dive. Until next time, take care.